Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for hanging on with us. So obviously you've already met me early this morning. So I'm Nat Gould, Senior Researcher here at Natives. And with me I've got
Kat Midwinter, who's one of the data analysts at NetNatives.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Calder and I'm Product Director for NetNatives and Akero.
So we want to talk you through the dashboard today, give you kind of a first look at what we've got in here, how to use it, what's included, what you're going to find interesting. And Kat and I are going to go through the NCS dashboard, and then Alex is going to introduce kind of Data Labs as a wider source of all things data here at Natives and what we've been working on over the last 12 months. We will be recording and explain a video for this as well. So partners, once you receive your dashboard, you'll also get a video talking you through how to use this. And obviously you can ask us any questions at any point as well, going forward from now. So just a quick overview here of the dashboard. So you can see that there are, at the top here, we've got these kind of wider tabs. So we've got key information, we've got overall data, threats and opportunities, regional profiling, trends and supplementary. And we're just going to give you kind of a bit of an overview of each of those tabs in today's session. But we're not going to go into every single data point in here because we will lose everyone's will to live at that point. We do have a lot of data in here, and I think that the key with the dashboard is that everyone can find different things that they're interested in and delve into different things, and that's kind of what we're really most proud of. So we're just going to start here in the key information tab. So within this tab, we've got the usage guide, which helps you kind of navigate your way through, gives you some tips on how you might use the dashboard. And then we've got the overview. So the overview gives you an overview of 2021 National Clearing Survey. You'll see over here, we've got it filtered. So it's filtered on 2021. But what you can do is you can change that to look at an overview of some of the previous year's data. And this is just really bringing some of those key questions together if you just want a snapshot of the National Clearing Survey without going into all of the different dashboards. And just to scroll down here, just to see kind of the wealth of stuff that is included in here. And as I said, this is just a snapshot of the National Clearing Survey 2021. We then move on to the overall data tab. And within overall data, this is where the bulk of the data itself is housed. So we have data around demographics, we have data around motivations and barriers. We've got clearing timeline, I think we talked about that earlier on. So there you can see when students are researching, when they're starting to contact places, when they're looking for places, and when they're securing their place. Also contacting institutions, so how they're doing that, what they're looking for, and then media consumption, where they're active in terms of different social media platforms. And as I said, there is so much data within each of these tabs, just for you to have and explore and play around with. And at the start of each every page, you'll be able to see these filters and these comparisons. And I'm going to hand over to Kat now, who's going to talk you through how you can kind of best use those to really segment and benchmark the data as you like.
So yes, thank you, Nat. Under each of these overall data pages, you'll have a series of filters at the top, which allow you to look at different age groups, genders, clearing profiles, widening participation in regions, student UK regions, institutions, institution UK regions, institution types, and of course, all of those different years. And the nice thing is that these pink tabs to the right will display how many responses your filters have left, both for the comparison section and for these top filters. So you'll be able to see your sample size for whatever filters you choose. What we're going to look into is a few of the options that you've got available. So if we look now, we've added a traditional clearing student filter, and we've also added a sample institution filter. So if this was your institution with your dashboard, this would be your name. And we've also then chosen to compare that to all of the other institutions. And again, those traditional clearing students. So you're comparing your institution's data for the traditional clearing student to those traditional clearing students from the rest of the sample. And all of these comparison graphs will show that benchmark. So in this case, all the other institutions, and all of the other graphs will be showing your data. Yeah, okay. And this is a different type of comparison, but this really shows if you don't have a large sample of your own data, how you can still create a proxy. So in this case, we're just looking at the post-92 institutions and we're comparing it to everything else. And again, you'll be able to see that the comparison charts will show your post-92 data or your other data, whichever one you select under the comparison part, and the other charts will show the other sections. This will all be outlined in the video, the explainer video, and also on the in the key information tab. So if people get confused, please go back. Also, please ask us. Next, well, firstly, are there any questions for the overall data tab?
So if you want to send any questions through, and then we can have an answer of them.
Whilst we wait for questions, we may as well move on to threats and opportunities, which is our next tab. So, under threats and opportunities, the aim of the threats and opportunities is to look at those students that you obtained through clearing and those students who originally applied to you during the main scheme applications. So the threats section will look at those students who originally applied to your institution, and it will display where they actually went. It will display what institution type they went to, why they applied through clearing, what subject they originally applied to, and what subject they then secured, and then why did they change their subject choice. So I'll do a quick demo of that. So if we pop into our original institution, your sample institution, or in your case, your institution, you'll be able to see again the number of responses that are left, and then where they've actually gone, why they applied, why they changed their subject. And again, if you've got a really small sample size, it doesn't matter. We can take this out and you can add the filters if desired, and you can still just see a specific clearing profile or a specific age group. So you can look at your clearing student and what their motivations for changing and where they've gone are. And then if we move down to the opportunity section, this looks at those students who secured a place at your institution through clearing. So you'll be able to see where they originally applied to, why they applied through clearing, the subjects that they applied originally to, the subjects that they've secured, and why they changed. Again, exactly the same thing works in exactly the same way. You just select your institution. As you can see, it's a different response number because it's looking at a different selection, a different pool of students. And then if you don't have enough, you can use all of these other filters as desired. So in short, you can see where to and why you're losing your students, that's under the threats, and where from and why you're gaining those students under the opportunities. So as I've mentioned, this feature isn't only useful for those institutions with a large sample, because there are filters available for age group, clearing profile, year. So you could also add in 2020, 2019 to try and boost that sample number, gender, and widening participation. So you can still access information that's specific to your institution's student demographic. And the year, yeah, it's also automatically set throughout the whole dashboard to 2021. Perfect. Again, if there's any questions at this point, please pop them in the questions section. And then we're now going to move on to regional profiling. So The aim of regional profiling is to be able to split lots of these questions up by location. We have a series of generic filters across the top of the page, just like all the other pages, allowing the user to be very specific with their sample, including age, gender, clearing profile, etc., etc. And again, we've got that response tab, so you can see how much your filters are reducing the sample by. And then each of the charts can be drilled down by various types of location breakdown. So the default is student region, so that's what we're seeing here. We've got all of these student regions. But by using these arrows, we can drill it down. So we can drill down from student UK region to country of origin. And now we're splitting it out by country. And then you could also split it out by institute or student kind of larger region. And then we've also got student international region to institution location. Once it loads. So by hovering over the arrows, it'll tell you what you're drilling down from and what you're going to. So you should be able to work that out. And then you can also move back up again. So we could drill back from institution location to student international region. And again, if there's any questions, please pop them in the question section. But if not, I will pass back over to Nat, who will go through the trends and the supplementary pages.
Okay, thanks, Kat. So yeah, as we mentioned, the trends. So throughout the dashboard, you can select the year that you want to look at. So at any point, you can look at data from 2018 through to 2021. But here in the trends, we just wanted to pull together some of those kind of more, I don't know, the key questions where we want to look at change over time, and so that we can visualize that in some really nice graphs. So we can see here that, again, we've got those filters. So if you want to look specifically at a certain clearing profile or a certain institution type, you can do that, or you can look at the data altogether. And here you'll see the responses there are all 4 years. So how many responses are there? And again, that will help you to see how big a sample you're dealing with as you get more and more niche with those filters. For some of the graphs, I should mention that there won't be 4 years of data, because either the question has changed, and so the response, we've changed some of the response options, or the question didn't exist prior to a certain year. So we're showing you all the data that we have for each of the questions. So some of those will have 4 years of questions, and some of those will have fewer. But that's just to explain why for some graphs there may be fewer years than others. All the sections here, so we've got demographics, we've got motivations and barriers. So they all map onto that overall data. So if there are some trend questions related to those overall data tabs, this is where you'll find them. So for example, we can see change over time here, the reasons why students are going through clearing. So either why are those who applied through the UCAS cycle back in January, why are they going through clearing? We can see there that achieving lower grades and predictors has always been the highest, but it's actually reducing, and reflecting some of those insights that we talked about earlier on. And again, we can see the same thing there for direct applicants. We can really see the reasons why they're choosing. We can see barriers, so we can see how barriers and important factors have changed. Now, barriers was only a question that was added in as a quantitative question in 2020, so that's why we've only got 2 years worth of data. Previous to that, it was asked as a free text question. So here we can see how cost of living is that barrier always, but we can see how mental health has increased. And here is where we can see that decrease in COVID-19 as a barrier between 2020 and 2021. So we're seeing much fewer students selecting that this year. Not going to delve into every graph, but you get the idea. We can see lots of different trends here across time. And then we get to those timelines that we were talking about earlier on. And this is where we get to really see how that's mapped, how that maps across the years, and also where there might be differences in what's happening and how students are being active. So around receiving their results, around when they start researching, when they start looking for a clearing place, and when they contact their first institution. And as we go down the timelines, we can see how nicely they map together, and then where there may be some nuances in kind of where there are peaks and troughs year on year. So really nice visualization of the timelines. And then around contacting institutions, how soon they expect a decision, and formats they're using to contact, and those media consumption. So really all that year on year data easily visualized for you to see and play around with as you wish, and to see what's most interesting for you as an institution. So that's the trends section. And then finally, we move on to the supplementary section. So in here, you'll find information about the methodology, what we've done over the years, and specifically what we've done for 2021. And also the reports library. So here you'll see all of the reports that we've previously put together for National Clearing Survey. So you can see we go all the way back to 2015, 2016, all the way through to last year are in here. And we'll be creating some infographics to go in here for 2021. So that's where you'll find kind of the new one later, well, early next year. So if you want to delve into some of those kind of previous years in a kind of report basis, you can do. I think the thing to emphasize really about the dashboards is the flexibility this year of really being able to manipulate the data, really being able to look at what's relevant for you as an institution, and really being able to play around with kind of the data you've collected, or if you haven't managed to get that many responses, actually creating those lookalike audiences to have a look at what those types of clearing students are doing. And as Kat mentioned, looking at those threats and opportunities, looking at that regional profiling, and really being able to delve into kind of what your institution is specifically interested in, or your particular audience. And that there is access to all 4 years of data. So even if you didn't participate in the previous years, it's there for you to have a look at, because you're now a partner with us, which is amazing. And that you will get your own dashboard, so your own kind of data will be there as the comparator that you can do that with, but nobody else will see your data kind of specifically. So it will be all aggregated for everybody else. And as I said, we'll be recording and explain a video to kind of go over this as well, which will be sent across with your dashboard. So it will really make it clear. And we're here for any questions. That's the end of the dashboard demo. I don't know if we've had any questions through at the moment. I think there's probably quite a lot to take in as we demo it. And it's really something that once you get access to it, which should be at the end of next week, then you can really kind of have a play around and see kind of how you use it and what's useful, and then we're open for you to get in touch with us to have any talks through it. So that's the National Clearing Survey dashboard, and we're super excited about it. I'm going to hand over to Alex now, who's just going to give a wider introduction to Data Labs and what else we have at our fingertips here at Natives.
Thank you, Nat. Wonderful. So what I wanted to do was to, first of all, describe a little bit about what Akero Data Labs is and how all of our proprietary data that we have collected over the years that we use for our own planning purposes and advertising delivery, how that is built into Data Labs, as well as the kind of data sources that we pull from across the sector. So hopefully everyone can still see the screen. Within everybody's Akero account that has access to Akero, you'll be able to see the Insight tab. So within there, we have market opportunity, brand monitoring, and sector insight. You'll also see underneath here that I have got some secret data sources that only I can see as part of the agency. This is actually really interesting to show, because this is the direction that we are moving with Akero Data Labs, which is all about bringing the data that we use to run the brilliant advertising campaigns that our teams deliver and putting that into the hands of student marketers at every institution. Really democratizing the access to that data, providing it to you and framing it in a way that enables you to deliver the most effective advertising possible. So just to show you a kind of taste of some of those data sources, we've broken it down, first of all, into demand. So within this section, we're looking at the popularity of courses and how that popularity of those different courses changes over time. So within here, we can go down and we can obviously filter this by specific region of the UK, by institution. So you can search for your own institution, your competitor's institution in there, level of study and subject area. We also have this data available up here for our US partners. So we pull from different data sources to provide that insight. And then what we're looking at is, first of all, growing and shrinking courses. And this is really important for thinking about how you can tailor your specific campaigns to those certain courses and to reach the right people who are interested in the courses that you need to fill. Going down here, we start to look at the demographics of institutional makeup. So the gender split at enrollments by particular institutions, the ethnic makeup of those enrollments, all from the perspective of making sure that your advertising content and collateral is representative of your audience and making sure that you are increasing that diversity and reaching a wider audience. We then look more specifically at online programs and the growth of those. So again, you can filter this by your institution and your competitors to look at where those market share opportunities exist. And then over time, how that course demand is changing. We also pull that into the table underneath, so you can go in and you can have a look at some of that in more detail. The next part is growth, where we take a little bit more of a geographic focus on the data. So first of all, we can see where are applicants choosing to study in the UK. So we can hover over the different regions, break that down to really look specifically at where enrollments are coming from, all from the perspective of tailoring that targeting from your advertising to understand whether the growth opportunities exist. Then we can look at where they're coming from, again, broken down by institution here, and the region summary. So this is your addressable audience per region. Underneath that, we take, we zoom out to 100,000 feet and we look at globally where international students are coming from. So the different countries here and how that's changing over time, as well as the popular courses, what's most popular, what are the fastest growing courses in those different regions and markets. All of this is tied into the specific features of Akero that allow you to bring your own data in. So for example, form performance to understand where your own inquiries and leads are coming from. Our advertising brief in order to take this data and apply it to advertising campaigns and to create those campaigns through there. And the evolution of this is really to take this data and build out your audience, so that for a specific campaign, specific set of marketing activity, you can create an audience from the data here that we can then address through advertising. So all of that is freely available sector data that we are democratizing, pulling together and providing through Akero. But then we overlay that with some of our own proprietary data. So if we look at benchmarking first, I'm just going to jump down to look at some of the advertising elements. So here we can see a benchmark CPM, so cost per 1,000 impressions across the platforms. So we can go in here, we can then compare that, or you are able to compare that to your own performance in order to understand how well you're doing against the sector as an average. Again, there are then clear opportunities for you to then improve that performance utilizing our student marketplace or some of the other features of our advertising. Here we can see click-through rate by platform, as well as cost per click by platform, and finally cost per lead as well. And then again, there are tips on how to improve that cost per lead. So dedicated landing pages, clear calls to action, and the use of forms. Hopefully, a lot of you are familiar with EduRank and have used that as part of your social media planning. So what we have done here is pulled, again, that freely available EduRank data that is our proprietary data that we have pulled from the institution's profiles and then formatted into our ranks, pulled that in with more of an advertising focus. So here you can see the ranks overall. So you can see in this case where University of York sits on there. And then competitor information. So we can look across competitors, across competitor groupings as well. And then down here, from an advertising perspective, there's some really interesting data available about understanding the busy times. So when are UK universities posting across these social platforms? And where are the opportunities for you to cut through, either in quieter times or to make sure that you are promoting that advertising at those key points? We can also then look at the best performing social posts in the sector. So within here, we can look, here we're just looking at Facebook as a platform and then comparing it to the sector. So we'll be able to see exactly what loads up as the most popular posts. So in this case, we've got University of Oxford here with a beautiful Christmassy picture, and we can see their engagements average per day, so that you as an institution can understand not only what your social media content strategy could look like in terms of what competitors are doing and what's cutting through, but also how you can support what you're doing from a social perspective with your paid advertising. And then finally, I just wanted to touch on the student pulse. So within here, you'll also see that we've loaded up the National Clearing Survey too. So you'll be able to, when the dashboards are launched, they'll be accessible all through Akero. So you'll be able to access all of that data from one place. And then with Pulse, what we do is, again, use our own proprietary data that we've sourced from our student panel and present really a state of play for that month, for that student audience, and what are they thinking, how are they feeling about their own well-being and their own health, and where they are in the decision-making process for university applications, as well as what kind of content and media they're consuming. So again, I won't go into this in too much detail, but it's all freely available to you within the platform. But we could jump into decision making, and we can look at where people are in that decision making process at this point, as well as what the barriers and motivations for study are. And again, this is all really important content that can be fed into advertising, as well as into your nurture strategies and your automation, even to current and existing students thinking about increasing retention and making sure that that they're happy and feel supported by the institution. Jumping onto media quickly, again, from an advertising perspective, this is really important for what platforms we're targeting our message at what point of the funnel. So for example, up here we can see where students go for information: university websites, UCAS, search, online forums, etc. But more importantly, how do they trust those different sources of information? So here we can see right down at the bottom, social media content. This is a big part of why we built our own student marketplace, so that when we are running advertising campaigns to drive awareness, we can make sure that the sites and publishers that we are delivering that advertising through are ones that are trusted by our student audience, and that they are brand safe and accessible in a very efficient way. For the social platforms, we can also see how often those students are using them. So when we are thinking about advertising across those platforms, we can see what's regularly accessed, multiple times a day, daily, weekly, again, to really help with our planning. So lots more information in there. That was a whistle-stop tour through Akero Data Labs. As I was saying, the real future and development of this is about pulling in more data sources. So all of that data that we have available, pulling it into a democratized and easy to use tool for all student marketers to access to help improve their own performance. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to take questions. Just wonderful. Okay, so we have, sorry if this has already been answered, but where does the dashboard data pull from? Is it survey responses, or does it also pull from UCAS applications, etc.? And I believe that is one for Nat.
Yeah, although I haven't got much to say, it just pulls from National Clearing Survey. So we want to make sure that it's really clear where the data is coming from and what it's showing. So the NCS dashboard is purely from our survey responses from National Clearing Survey. So it doesn't have any of that other data overlaid into it. So it's really clear kind of what source we're talking about in the dashboard.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for everybody who has attended today during this session. Thank you for all of our partners who have taken part in the National Clearing Survey. It's always a real pleasure to work alongside universities on this research and to broaden our own understanding and the wealth of knowledge that's available within the sector. Also, to encourage anyone who hasn't taken part with us this year, please do get in touch about taking part next year. We're more than willing to look at broadening that pool and bringing in as many universities as possible. As Nat mentioned earlier, the dashboards will be ready, the National Clearing Survey dashboards will be ready for you, I believe next week, towards the end of next week. But in the meantime, if you do have any questions about what's in Data Labs or anything like that, then we can do get in touch and we can address those. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak to you and look forward to seeing you all soon.